Hi, this is Matt. This is Mental Model Monday number 28. We're talking about social rhythms today. Probably one of my most useful social mental models, of which I have many. But when I first started thinking about this idea of social rhythms when I was in middle school, and what I would do is I would go into the cafeteria with a beat in my head. I would just tap out under the table or in my mind or with my feet. I'd be tapping out a beat. And I would talk in this beat. And I would gesture in this beat. And no matter the beats or the pace of other people around me, I would keep talking in that beat. Um, and what I would notice is that as I interacted with people and as I sort of held that beat, and as I connected with the people on the level of that beat, they would start going into that beat. And then if this wouldn't always happen, but sometimes if the whole table started interacting on that beat, that would spread to the other table. And I often like to see sort of how much I could get this rhythm, this social rhythm, to spread among the whole cafeteria if I was interacting at this certain pace, at this certain beat. If I was tapping out, could I get other people to start tapping that beat? Could I get other people to start interacting uh, in that rhythm? And I started to understand a lot of social interactions and how people interact in terms of this idea of rhythms and beats and how these things affect the ways in which we interact and how we can think about um, all sorts of different social issues in terms of are we on the same beat? Are we on a different beat? So another example of this is on New Year's Eve. I went to two separate parties, and the first one involved sort of dancing around. There was music. We were all on the beat of this music. We were very happy. We were very upbeat. We were sort of very raucous and loud. And the second party I went to was very much pulled back, had a slower beat, had a more contemplative beat. We were playing a game where we were inventing this world, and it was just a very different thing. So, in terms of like how I actually use that, one of the things I did when I came to the new party was I just took a moment to find the beat, to get myself centered in this new beat before interacting in the party, before really getting into it. I just needed to get myself centered in the new beat. If I had come in with this raucous old beat and I had just sort of immediately started interacting from that rhythm, it would have been incongruous. It wouldn't have meshed with the beat of the new party I was at. So I took a time to sort of find the beat of this new party before I started interacting with it. And this is actually happens quite frequently. This is actually taught in partner dancing, in zouk, in blues, in swing, and I'm sure in many other types of partner dance that I haven't done. Is you'll take a second before you start doing these crazy moves, before you start really start playing with your partner. What you do is you just take a moment to sort of sway in the beat. Maybe you do um, the basic step of that dance, or you're just swaying and finding each other and finding your own rhythms. Because if you don't, if you just start trying to do the crazy, the interactive stuff, that you're not going to be in sync for that. It's not going to go well. You're going to step on somebody's toes, or you're going to be a little jerky because you haven't found a mutual beat before you begin. And this happens in social interactions all the time. By the way, this is one of the purposes of small talk. Some people don't like small talk. I'm one of the don't like small talk peoples. But one of the reasons small talk exists is so that you can find out each other's beat, feel out each other's beat before you start going into deeper topics. So that when you do start going into deeper topics, they're powerful and you're not stepping on any toes or being jerky, uh, things like this. Um, so I think this idea of taking a moment to find the beat of a social situation you're going into can be very powerful. Um, and doing a little state control on yourself. Taking the moment to center yourself in the state of the people that you're with, slow down your rhythm, slow down your beat to match with people is really powerful. Um, so I think actually individuals have their own rhythms, their own beats that they're more comfortable with. There are some groups that you might not fit in with because their beats are just so different from your own. So an example of this with dancing is I find it much, much easier to do to get into blues dancing than to get into zouk dancing, because blues dancing has this bounce to it. You're sort of as you shift your weight, you're actually doing a little you're sort of like doing a step tap. You're bouncing to the thing. There's this punctuatedness to blues dancing, which matches with the punctuatedness to my own beat. I am this very bouncy person. I do have this punctuatedness to how I interact. I do have this jarringness to how I switch states. Whereas Zouk is smooth. Instead of this step tap motion, you're actually shifting your weight as you step from foot to foot in Zouk. Zouk is a very smooth style of dance. And I, as a person who has a very bouncy personality, did not take to Zouk very well. Similarly, they don't take to situations where I'm required to have this very smooth, non-punctuated style of interacting with people. So I think knowing your own rhythm and sort of understanding that and understanding how it affects how you interact with groups and uh, places where there might be discordance between you and the environment is important to know because operating in a rhythm that's not natural to you is actually energy taking and energy draining. So knowing what rhythms work for you and being able to figure out what are the differences between the rhythm that works for me and the rhythm that I'm in and how different are they is really important for energy management and for finding places that you enjoy and situations that you enjoy. Um, so I think that on an individual level, when interacting with individuals, this is very important. I've been in situations where an individual was operating on one beat, and they didn't realize the group was on a separate beat, and it made them upset. So, for instance, I've been in a situation where an individual was with the group. It was a very sort of slow-paced, very deliberate beat. That person left the group for a while. And in that time, the beat of the group changed a little bit more jazzy. There was like a cuddle party. People were sort of interrupting each other in a very flowy, synergistic sort of way. This person came back thinking that we were still on the other beat, and they got very upset that people were interrupting each other. Both because that was not the beat that they personally operated on. They didn't operate on that jazzy type of beat, and because they weren't there as the beat started to shift. They were in a completely different beat, and they weren't able to make that shift when they came back to the group. So this I've seen this work the opposite way too, where where I've been in a group that has one type of beat very fast. Somebody else comes in, I start interacting with them at that fast way. They're like, "Whoa, hold on, that was not okay. I'm not sort of okay with this pace right now." To where the beat I was on was not calibrated to the person in front of me. So the way you get good at this is this idea of pacing and leading, which is I believe is a concept that originated with NLP. It might have been prior to NLP that this originated, but the idea of pacing and leading is that if you want to bring somebody to a certain beat, you first have to match them at their beat before you can start to move them to a different beat. So the typical typical thing in NLP, and this is just a general rule, is for every three paces you have one lead. So I'm here at your beat with you, beat with you, beat with you, speed up a little bit. Beat with you, beat with you, beat with you, speed up a little bit, beat with you, beat with you, beat with you, speed up a little bit, so on and so forth. Um, to where you should be, you should be giving people getting people used to this new beat before you lead them to the next beat, and knowing how much am I pacing, how much am I leading here. A lot of this has to do with rapport as well. The more rapport you have with somebody, the more you can lead, the less you have to do pacing, and pacing actually builds that rapport. So, really important idea to understand when you're working with social rhythms is pacing and leading. Now, I think groups, whether that be a company or a nonprofit or a group of friends, they also have their own beats. Um, and I actually think that people being able to be on the same beat and being able to figure out, does this person's individual beat meet with this group's beat, has a lot to do with group productivity and group effectiveness. Um, and I think there's a real issue. People see people just sort of messing around and joking around. There's no content to the conversation, and they think this is like this weird signaling thing. Like this is like a useless thing, but it's actually very valuable. This type of what we call vibing is actually very valuable for building a group beat that we can use to actually be productive. Once you have a group beat, there's more synergy. There's sort of less need to. Conversations work really smooth when you have the same beat. You know when to interrupt somebody. You know when to let them talk. Um, you know what speed they're at, and you're keeping up with them mentally as they're talking. And what this sort of vibing energy does when people are just messing around is it helps build this ability to vibe on this level, to build a group rhythm, and it can also screen for people who aren't good for that group rhythm. When people sort of don't get along in this sort of vibing thing, it can really be information to a group that this person will actually lower our productivity because there's going to be slight discordance in our rhythm, a slight discordance in our beat that we can't handle. So I think people don't demonstrate this content list um, interaction as something useless. I really think people need to realize the utility in this sort of vibing environment. I also think there are cultural rhythms. If you go to somewhere like Hawaii or when I was in Ireland, the beat is very different. The pace of life is very different. Hawaii has a much slower beat than uh, San Francisco. Berkeley has a very different beat from San Francisco, has a very different beat from Portland, has a very different beat from Boston. All the places I lived, and you sort of understand the beat. Boston has a very, very, very fast pace, probably the fastest pace of all of those that I've been to. Portland has a much slower pace. Hawaii has an even slower pace. And the beat's different too. It's not just about pacing, it's about rhythm. So I think these beats exist on an individual level, on an interpersonal level between two people, on a group level, on a cultural level. They're all sort of subsets of each other. In that, and this is obviously a fake model, but tend to cultures can tend to have certain rhythms. Let's talk about um, beats in adversarial contexts. Um, So dictating the pace. When you're in an adversarial context, where you're not in a collaborative context where you want to uh, be with somebody on the same beat, but you actually want to you're actually adversarial with them. In this case, you actually want to dictate the pace of the beat. Oftentimes, the person who can dictate the beat in an adversarial context, who can cause somebody to slow down or cause them to speed up, can actually be a winner here. I think OODA loops are also relevant in this adversarial context, where the person with the faster pace, provided that they're at the same level, can actually dictate the pace of the conversation. But being able to slow somebody down or speed somebody up is really powerful. So if I'm in a wrestling match, and somebody tends to like to go really fast and do a lot of shots, but I can get them in a tie-up and slow them down, to where they're off their game, to where I'm playing my game, but their beat is the one that's off. Their beat is the one that is not, again, with their natural rhythm. Now they're losing energy because they're trying to fight at a different pace, whereas I'm with my beat. I'm gaining energy. So knowing how to slow things down and speed things up in whatever race you're in, whether that be in a business, whether that be in a sport, whether that just be in your career and your against somebody else, knowing how to make them take your pace, bring them to your beat by providing blockers or constraints, or doing the opposite by forcing them to keep up, is a really powerful tool to, in an adversarial context, to it's just one of many tools in your toolbox to gain an advantage in a situation. So that's social rhythms. I think it's, again, a incredibly useful tool to understand social context and to start understanding why people get along. To start, it's an incredibly apt metaphor that can go a long way in helping you to increase your social prowess and social awareness. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and I'll catch you on the flip side.